Hello viewers, welcome to Keats Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2014 Mercedes GL350 with a 3.0 liter diesel engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the engine cranks but it doesn't start. Sometimes the engine starts, but as soon as it starts it runs for about 2 or 3 minutes and then the engine dies. Now I have to mention that the owner of this vehicle, the person who brought this vehicle to us is one of our subscribers. His name is Mr. Chandler. He actually asked me to make a video because they wanted to see how we're going to fix this vehicle, and hopefully we're going to fix it. So if you think we're going to fix it, let us know in the comment section. So there is a story to this vehicle, and I want to tell you what happened before this vehicle came to our shop. So Mr. Chandler owns a shop in the DC area. I don't want to say exactly where the shop is, but they have a shop in DC. This vehicle was at their shop. They worked on it, and after they worked on it, they were driving it, and then the vehicle died all of a sudden while it was being driven. After it died, they towed it to their shop, and then they replaced a couple things. When they replaced those components, the vehicle was still not fixed. So a lot of components were replaced. The vehicle is still not fixed. And then they found us online. They sent the vehicle to us. So hopefully we can fix it. Now, I wrote down everything that was replaced because I asked them a couple questions so I could really know the backstory and figure out what was done to this vehicle so we can know what directions we're gonna go to fix this vehicle. So here is what I was told. I have my notebook here so I can accurately tell you what was done to this. So the vehicle died when it was being driven. When the vehicle died, then the fuel pumps were replaced. So they replaced the fuel pumps in the tank, and this vehicle has two fuel pumps in the tank. One is on the right side and then the other one is on the left side. They replaced both fuel pumps and the vehicle was still not fixed. Now, I asked them and said, did you guys install OEM parts? They said, yes, we got the fuel pumps from the Mercedes dealership. So two fuel pumps were replaced from the Mercedes dealership. The vehicle didn't get fixed. And then the other thing that was replaced was the pressure sensor. So the boost pressure sensor under the hood was replaced. They told me they also installed an OEM boost pressure sensor. And then the other thing that was replaced, and again, guys, me reading this, I'm not trying to mock the other shop. I'm not making fun of them. I'm not, standing here saying, oh, they couldn't fix it, we're making fun of them. No, I'm sharing with you what they told me so that you guys can know what I know and so we can fix this. So that as I'm going through the diagnosis process, because knowing what they did might dictate some of the steps that I might do. So I remember in the video that we made, we shot a video a couple of days ago, and that video is up on YouTube. I was telling what the other shop did and what we did, and someone in the comments said, you are throwing the other shop under the bus. I'm not throwing the other shop under the bus. I'm saying what the other shop did, and then we're gonna fix and do whatever we have to do to get this done. So I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I don't want to get thrown under the bus if I make a mistake. Everybody does make a mistake. It happens. My goal is to work with other people and fix cars and make everybody happy, which is hard to do. I don't think you can make everybody happy, but I would try. This is a shop that came here so I can help with the car that they're having trouble with. And I have a lot of shops here in the area that bring their vehicles here for diagnosis. So not in any circumstance or in any way I would try to throw them under the bus, but I'm gonna say what they did and what I'm gonna recommend and what I think we should do to fix the vehicle. So this is me telling you, this is not me saying, oh, they don't know what they're doing. No. Because nobody knows everything. We all make mistakes. We all get comebacks. It happens. I try to make less mistakes by checking and double checking myself. You guys see how we do things here. Even when I know that a certain component needs to be replaced, I always check and double check myself because you never know. You can have a bad part, you can do your job right, but if you get a cheap part that's gonna fail in 2 weeks, you can have the same issue come up. So again, you know, once again, that was a little rant and answering the question, to answering what that subscriber said. I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, we don't throw anybody under the bus here, but I tell you what, you know, what was done to the vehicle. So boost pressure sensor was replaced, and then the cam sensor was replaced. Now all these components they installed, they told me there were OEM components. So cam sensor was replaced, and then because I asked them, I said, when you guys replaced the fuel pump and then you replaced the boost pressure sensor, why did you replace the cam sensor? Because I wanted to know, why did they replace the cam sensor? They told me that there was a code in the engine computer that came up after they replaced the fuel pumps. A code for the cam sensor came up, and then they replaced the sensor. So they replaced the cam sensor because there was a code in the cam sensor. And then the next thing they did was they replaced the timing chains. So this engine got timing chains. And then I asked, I said, why did you guys replace timing chains? They said, well, the cam sensor code came, and then we replaced the sensor, and then we replaced the timing chains. Then the next question I asked was, did you guys install OEM timing chains? Because you don't want to get aftermarket chains, especially on these European vehicles. The OEM chains and the aftermarket chains are different. The aftermarket chains tend to be slightly longer. The links on the chains tend to be longer. So guys, if you're gonna work on these vehicles, go OEM, okay? Especially Europeans, just go OEM. Don't try to do aftermarket. Now, they told me they installed OEM timing chains. So they installed the guides, they installed the timing chain tensioner, and the chains themselves. So everything that was installed was OEM. I said, okay, so what else? And then they told me that they also replaced the oil cooler. So the oil cooler that goes between the intake manifolds was replaced because it was leaking. Okay, so that's good to know. The oil cooler was replaced. And then they told me that the catalytic converters were replaced. I said, okay, so it sounds like this vehicle got a lot of parts replaced on it. They say, yeah, we replaced the catalytic converters. And I said, did you guys install OEM catalytic converters? Now, I didn't write down because I'm looking at my notes. It's not saying if they installed OEM catalytic converters. I don't know if they did. I can't say. We're going to have to check, and I don't remember. This vehicle has been here for a little while. We had a couple cars that we had to go through first before we got to this one. So I don't remember if they installed OEM catalytic converters or if they installed aftermarket catalytic converters, but we're going to figure that out. So just to recap, fuel pumps were replaced on this one, oil cooler, cam sensor, timing chains, catalytic converters, and boost pressure sensor. And the vehicle does not start. So knowing everything we know right now, let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, we're going to connect our scan tool to the vehicle to see what codes we have, and then we're going to go from there. Now, are we going to fix it? Are we not going to be able to fix it? I hope we can. You know, I'm going to go in this with a huge enthusiasm. I want to figure out what's wrong because, you know, even my man, my man Robin was like, oh, I can't wait to see how this is going to go because I want to see what's going to fix this. And Mr. Chandler and his guys at his shop, they're looking forward to this video so they can see what we're going to find. So I don't know what we're going to find. Cameraman Kyler, behind the camera, we have our awesome cameraman Kyler. Thanks for being here. So now let's go in the vehicle so we can see what we're going to find. Okay, so the battery is weak on this car. So we have to put, oh, this thing doesn't stay. The hood shocks are defective. Okay, I'll go grab something so we can prop the hood. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're gonna put this over here. Actually, I remember when we were looking at this yesterday, Kyler and I were looking at this car yesterday. We were kind of planning our day, I mean our next day, which was yesterday. And then I like what Kyler said when we opened the hood. He was like, "Oh, this is a Sprinter engine." So our cameraman Kyler, man, in a couple months you're gonna be a diesel specialist, Kyler. You know, you're gonna know so much about these. You will start diagnosing these vehicles, Kyler. All right, so let's put this battery jumper here, because this engine is the same as the kind of engine that we have on Sprinter vans. It's the same thing. Sprinter van, even that Mercedes over there, same thing. Okay, now since we're gonna be cranking the engine, I'm going to put, actually, Kyler, can you see this? This over here is the cam sensor. You see that sensor there? I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know if you can tell, this looks new. So this was replaced, we can see this already. Okay, and then I can't really see the catalytic converters. Oh yeah, I can. Catalytic converters look new too. I mean, you guys won't be able to see, but the catalytic converters down there look new. I don't think you can see that. Okay, I'm just doing a quick visual inspection under the hood before we crank this engine. All right, cool. So I'm gonna put my battery jumper here on top of the engine. That's fine, we're not gonna damage anything by doing that, because I don't want this to move when we crank the engine. Maybe I should put it over here. This thing is so bulky, so big. Oh, and then this line over here is disconnected. This vacuum line. Interesting. All right, so we got our battery charger on the battery. So now let's go in the vehicle. Let me check the mileage on this car. Oh, this car has 241,000 miles. 547. Wow, that's a lot of miles. So I'm gonna crank the engine. Okay. What do you think, Kyler? Kyler's looking at me and laughing. What's up, cameraman Kyler? And it looks like this thing doesn't even have enough fuel. Oh, I think it's a quarter tank. It doesn't sound good though. Oh my goodness. This thing doesn't sound good. Listen. Dang. I don't know how well the mic can pick the sound if we go under the hood. I might have to be under the hood while you crank this, because I want everyone to listen to the engine. This engine doesn't sound good. So it cranks and then it starts just for a few seconds and then it dies. Now, knowing that the timing chains were replaced, did they time it right? I don't know. I mean, listen. Okay, it seems to be running now, but very sluggishly. Okay, let's go under the hood. I'll hold the camera under the hood while cameraman Kyler starts the engine for us. Let's listen to it before we scan the engine computer. So let's go under the hood. So go ahead and crank it. Oh, listen to that. I hope you can see the engine shaking. This engine is shaking very badly. Start it one more time. Whoa, that's bad. Try it one more time. Dang. Okay, all right, that's good. All right, guys, so that was enough. So that's customer's complaint confirmed. All right, so you guys heard how this engine sounds. This engine sounds bad, okay? But actually, the car itself looks nice inside. I mean, the seats look nice. It's a pretty roomy car. It's a Mercedes. Kyler, you don't like Mercedes? Kyler is like just shaking his head. You need to figure out a way to let our community know how you're shaking your head, you know, so they can know what you're saying. All right, so this engine sounds really bad. Okay, so let's scan it and see what happens. So I'm gonna turn the key on. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so we're gonna go to scanner. So right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2014 Mercedes GL class with a 3.0 liter engine. And indeed, this vehicle has 241,000 miles, 547. So we're gonna click OK. Let's do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle. So right now, what's going through my mind right now, knowing how the engine runs and how it sounds, I mean, it doesn't even run, knowing how it sounds when it cranks, the first thing I want to check is I would like to check our fuel pressure to the engine. The good thing about this one is I saw a fuel pressure sensor on the line that comes from the tank. So there's a fuel pressure sensor on the primary side of the fuel system. So that's good. We can watch the data feed from that sensor to see if there is enough fuel going to the high pressure fuel pump. Now, since they changed the fuel pumps in the tank, I believe we're gonna have enough fuel pressure going to the high pressure pump, but you never know, we gotta check. And then the next thing I would wanna check, I kinda wanna focus on the fuel delivery system first. Let's make sure we have enough fuel going to the injectors. And then after that, we might check, since they did the timing chains, I do have a cam and crank correlation waveform that I got from a Sprinter engine a while ago. I have it saved in my scan tool. It's a non-good one, so I might have to compare that. We might have to look at the waveform coming from the cam sensor and the crank sensor, because if you look at both waveforms, both signatures of the cam sensor and the crank sensor, if the timing is off, you can pretty much know, looking at those signals or the square waves from both sensors, that can tell you if the timing is off or on. So we can do that to double check the timing, because based on how it sounds, maybe the timing is off. I don't know. So we have to do some tests to figure out where the issue is. So our scan tool is done scanning all the control units on the vehicle. We have 3 codes in the engine computer. The first code is 156000, and it says the negative control deviation during exhaust gas recirculation control is too high. So we have a EGR code. Now, I know if you have a EGR valve that's stuck open, that can cause the engine to not start sometimes. Not really, but sometimes it does. And then the second code we have says refer to OEM repair information for code description. So this is a OEM specific code. And then the third code is 15FC00, and it says the learned values for component B28/8 DPF differential pressure sensor are outside the permissible range. Okay, so now the third code could be caused by a defective pressure differential sensor or a problem in the pressure differential sensor wiring. I mean the pressure differential sensor for the DPF, or maybe a broken pressure differential sensor tube between the DPF itself and the sensor. So we're gonna have to do some tests to figure out what's going on. But this code, the third code, would not prevent the engine from starting. The engine would still start, it's gonna run, but the vehicle might lose power. So right now, let's not get sidetracked. Let's get the engine to run. Let's get the engine to start and run first. Like, we have to get this engine to run while it's not dying. And then we're gonna check everything else, because I believe there are a lot of issues going on with this vehicle. But let's see if we can get this engine to start and run. So I'm gonna scroll down and see what else we have. We have 7 codes in the transmission control unit. Okay, so we have some wheel speed sensor codes here. I'm gonna ignore these other codes. I'm gonna print out all these codes. I will let the customer know, but we're gonna focus on whatever we have in the engine computer, because that's what this vehicle came to us for. So we have 3 codes in the instrument panel. We got 5 codes in the airbag, 6 codes in the ABS control unit. Stability program has detected an under voltage, over voltage. So all these voltage codes are because the battery was dead at some point. So we're not worried about that. Okay, we have 2 codes in the air conditioning control unit, 3 codes in the signal acquisition control unit. Sensor coolant level has a malfunction. The fluid level is too low. Okay, so the coolant level might have been low at some point. Okay, this thing has a code in pretty much every module. Okay, on the generic side of the tool, we have 3 codes. P2453, particulate filter pressure sensor A, circuit performance / range, okay? And then the second code is P02EC, diesel intake airflow A control system, high airflow detected. Okay, so this has something to do with the EGR valve. And then the third code is P20EA, reductant control module, power relay de-energized, performance too early. And then we have more codes. We have mass airflow sensor codes, P010F, mass or volume airflow sensor AB, correlation. And then the second one is P2004, intake manifold runner control, stack open bank 1. So we have the same code for both banks. P2005, intake manifold runner control stack, open bank 2. And then C0034, right front wheel speed sensor. And then U0416, invalid data received from vehicle dynamics control module. Okay, so where do we go from here? What do we do? So the interesting thing is that the EGR valve monitor has run and passed. Readiness monitor test complete. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Since we have a bunch of trouble codes, let's back out. I'm gonna erase all these codes. I have all these codes saved in the scan tool, so don't freak out when I say we're gonna erase all these codes. I know some of you might say, why are you erasing the codes? You should do the test first before you erase the codes. That's fine. I have all these codes saved. So I'm going to clear all the codes. And then the next thing I want to do is, after I clear the codes, I'm going to look at our fuel delivery data PIDs. And I'm also tempted to go under the hood and disconnect the EGR valve electrical connector, because if we have an EGR valve that's stuck open, that can cause the engine not to start, okay? So we cleared the codes out of this control unit, so we're gonna click OK. Now let's go into the engine computer. Let's go to data. Okay, so we're gonna go to check high pressure control. Actually, before we check our high pressure control data group, let's check the DPF. So key on engine off, let's see what our soot content in the DPF is. So hash content of diesel particulate filter KJ is 00. And then load state of diesel particulate filter is 7 grams. So that's nothing. On most of these diesel vehicles, the engine computer is not going to initiate the regen until your soot level in the DPF is at about 15 or 20 grams. So 7 grams is not a lot. And then the pressure differential sensor PSI is 0. So let me graph this. Let me crank the engine and see what happens. Okay. So when the engine runs, the pressure differential sensor goes up to 15 psi. That's high. 15 psi means something is blocked in the exhaust system. It could be the DPF that's blocked, or maybe the sensor is sending a skewed signal to the engine computer, and the computer might be killing the engine. The computer could be turning off the engine if it thinks that the DPF is clogged or there is a restriction in the exhaust system. Because as you can see, the maximum pressure we built in the pressure differential sensor. So pressure differential sensor is the sensor that's located between the inlet of the DPF and the outlet of the DPF. So it watches the pressure change across the DPF. So if this pressure is going this high, and if this is the data that the sensor is sending to the control unit, the control unit will think as if there's a restriction in the exhaust system, and it can disable all kinds of things. I mean, the ECM can disable all kinds of things, which can cause a lot of issues. So that's good to know. Now, knowing this, let's go back, because we might have to focus on this first, because as long as our pressure differential sensor data pit is really high like this engine may not run. Or we could also have a restriction, because we could have a restricted exhaust. Although the catalytic converters were replaced, we could still have a restricted exhaust. And if we have a restricted exhaust, that's being caused by a restricted DPF, the engine is not going to run. Because if you have a clogged exhaust, the engine is not going to run. So we might have to, the thing is, the engine doesn't run. We can't drive it in the shop to put it on the lift. I don't want to crawl under this car. We might have to just jack it up and put it on jack stands and see what we're going to find under the vehicle. So now I want to check one more thing. So let's go to fuel pressure. So let's check our fuel pressure. Let's go to check high pressure control. Okay, so our rail pressure right now is showing us 5,000 psi. Now this can be deceiving also, because how are we going to have 5,000 psi in the rail while the key is on and the engine is not running? So don't let this fool you. I don't think we have 5,000 psi on the rail right now. Okay, so now let's crank the engine. We don't have a low side fuel pressure data pit though. Let's crank the engine. So I'm trying to rev the engine. The engine is not even revving. So when you step on the accelerator pedal, nothing is happening. Okay, here's one thing I noticed. Our rail pressure key on engine off is at 5,269 psi, so 5,260 psi. And when we start the engine, it barely goes up. It goes up to about 6,000 psi, and then it comes back down. So our rail pressure, our fuel pressure in the rail is barely changing. So it went up a little bit. Okay. The question is, do we have enough fuel going to the rail, the fuel rail? Question mark. So let's not get carried away. Let's not get too fancy because I get confused sometimes. Let's go under the hood. I want to do a quick thing we can do. I want to use some starting fluid. Let's spray some starting fluid in the induction system to see if the car is going to run for a little bit longer. If it does, that will tell us that our issue is most likely in the fuel delivery system, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to get some starting fluid. Now, when you use starting fluid, you have to be careful. You don't want to spray too much. If you do, you can damage stuff. So let's go under the hood and do some quick tests and see what we're going to find. I'm going to use this starting fluid. Let's see if we can make this engine run for a little long. So cameraman Kyler is going to crank the engine for us. So these are the tubes that go to the air filter. So I'm going to spray starting fluid down here. You have to be careful when you do this. We're not going to spray a lot of starting fluid here. So go ahead and crank it. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to have to, let me see if I can move this box. This thing's heavy. I don't know if you guys can see with this box over here in the way. I'm gonna have to get a small charger because this battery trunk box is big. So I am going to, let's see if we can undo this from this side here. So what I'm doing is I'm opening these inlet tubes up here. So I'm going to spray my starting fluid from this point so that our starting fluid can go straight in the turbo and out in the turbo outlet. So that way the engine is going to start a lot faster. Or no, because if we spray it over here, starting fluid has to go through the turbo and then through the charger cooler and out to the engine. It's going to take too long to get to the intake manifold. So what I might have to do is I might have to remove this tube here. And then, oh, look at what they did here. What the frick? Cameraman Kyler, can you show what they put a piece of mechanical wire here to hold this tube, because I was gonna disconnect this tube here so I can spray starting fluid right where the throttle body is. Look at this. Does this look good to you? Man. Okay, so I'm gonna have to disconnect it from this point here. Okay. Alright, so I got this tube over here disconnected. So cameraman Kyler, if you can show us this tube here. Okay, so I'm gonna spray my starting fluid on these tubes because this tube is connected to the throttle body. So I'm gonna spray this here. That way we're gonna bypass the charger, cooler, and the rest of the tubing. So that's it. All right, so Kyler is gonna go back in the vehicle and crank the engine for us. Let's see if it's gonna start. If it starts, that will tell us that we have a fuel delivery problem. If it starts and runs for a little while. Yeah. Okay, try it. The battery is getting weak. Ah, dang it. We might have to bring a battery charger out here. I don't know if we have a long enough. Can you turn the key off? Smells like something is burning here. I don't know what's that, but geez. Okay, dead battery. Okay, my battery charger is probably getting weak too. Okay, let me figure out how I can bring our battery charger here. I mean, my battery jumper here is getting weak. So let me, I don't know if we have a long power cord that's gonna go from the shop all the way out here. Okay, let me figure out the battery situation. I'm gonna get a battery charger on the battery, and then we'll bring you guys back up so we can continue our testing. All right, we were able to get a long enough extension to get our battery charger out here. So I'm gonna remove my jump box, and then we're gonna connect our battery charger to this battery terminals here. We have fuses laying around. So let's turn this on. Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a break. It's lunchtime. We're gonna leave the battery charger here. It's gonna charge the battery while we're taking our lunch break. When we get back after lunch, we're gonna continue our testing. So see you after lunch. So we're back from our lunch. You guys can see my face. That's what cameraman Kyler told me. As long as you can hear my voice, we're good to go. Now we're gonna pick back from where we left off. So cameraman Kyler is gonna go in the vehicle and crank the engine for us. I have my starting fluid here, so we're gonna spray some starting fluid here. Our battery charger has been on the vehicle the entire time, so the battery should be pretty charged right now. So let's see what we got. So go ahead and crank it. Crank it. Interesting. It almost started, and then now it would try again. Try it. I'm gonna try to keep it running with starting fluid. Go. Again. Okay, now I don't think we have a fuel delivery problem, because when you first started it, I sprayed some starting fluid here. If the issue was fuel delivery, the engine would have kept running. It dies right away, so interesting. Let me try to crank it again. Very odd. Okay, so I'm gonna get the scan tool reconnected to the vehicle. Let's see if we have a code that came back. Okay. So now the key is on in the vehicle. I have the scan tool connected. As the scan tool is communicating to the engine computer, I want to reach over here and disconnect the EGR valve, because remember we had an EGR valve code. Let me see if I can disconnect the valve, because maybe we have an EGR valve that's stuck open. Okay, so I got the EGR valve disconnected here. I don't know if you guys can see back here. You probably won't be able to see, but I can show you that later. So I got the EGR valve disconnected, because what I'm thinking about is if we have an EGR valve that's stuck open, that can cause the engine to not run. So the valve is disconnected. Let's see. I'm going to try to start it again. Let's see if it's going to run. So same thing is happening. This is odd, very odd. So EGR valve is disconnected, same thing is happening. I have the scan tool connected to the vehicle. Let's rescan the engine computer and see what we got. So what else can cause this? Because I don't think we have a fuel delivery problem. Because if we did, when I sprayed this starting fluid, the engine didn't run longer than it is right now, because it sounds like the timing is off, and then the injection is occurring at the wrong time. So when the injector opens, the injector is probably not spraying the fuel at the right time, which is preventing the engine from running. Interesting. So, and the thing is, we don't have a timing code though. It's very odd. Okay, so we have the EGR valve code, component Y27/9, exhaust gas recirculation actuator has a malfunction. That's probably because I disconnected the valve. But one thing I noticed is the DPF code, the DPF sensor code keeps coming back. Now, like I said earlier, we could still have a clogged exhaust system. We could have a clogged exhaust system. So the thing is, this car is not running, and I don't want to push this in the shop. It's going to require too much effort. Cameraman Kyler is just shaking his head. Because remember when we looked at the pressure differential data PID, the pressure went up to about 16 psi. So we could have a clogged exhaust. Now, I can remove this O2 sensor and try to start the engine to see if the engine is going to run. Because if we remove that O2 sensor there, it's going to create an opening in the exhaust system. If the exhaust is clogged, the engine should run, if that's the issue. I'm trying to figure out what quick test I can do. Now I'm going to reconnect the EGR valve. I'm going to reconnect the electrical connector of it. Okay, so then we go back and clear all these codes. Let's see if we can clear the codes. So the EGR valve code remains in the engine computer. Let me go back. Let's clear this again. Okay, so for some reason, the EGR valve code is remaining on. So this can be caused by a problem in the wiring of the EGR valve, or the valve itself could be defective. So let's kind of ignore that for now, although that could be the issue too. But now what I want to do is, before I focus on the exhaust system, I'm going to put my scan tool over here. And then cameraman Kyler, if you can come here under the hood, I'm going to crack one of these injector lines. I'm going to crack it. We're going to crank the engine to see how much fuel we have going to the injectors. Can you see this line over here? So this is our fuel injector line. So I'm going to crack this line. I'm going to go in the vehicle and crank it. So if we have fuel going to the injectors, we should have fuel leaking out of this line. And we should have a good amount of fuel coming out of this line. So I'm just checking. Oh, look at that. That's enough fuel. That's good. Okay. All right. Actually, I will hold the camera if you can crank the engine for us. Okay, so I'll hold the camera, then you can crank it for us. Okay. So I'm gonna crack this line. Go ahead, crank it. Okay, hold on. Crank it. All right. This is not enough fuel. We don't have a lot of fuel going to these injectors. The fuel flow coming out of this line should be a lot higher than this. I don't like this. So this is the line that comes out of the high pressure fuel pump. So I'm gonna crack this line. Okay, this is a 17. Let's crack this line over here. Go ahead, crank the engine. All right. I mean, that was enough. Crank it again. All right. Interesting. I mean, in terms of fuel, that wasn't too bad. Let me crack the line on this rail over here. Now, guys, as I'm doing this, I'm wearing glasses. Okay, you have to do this carefully, because you can get hurt if you don't know what you're doing, because fuel that comes out of these rails come out of very high pressure, so you have to be careful. So I'm gonna crack this line over here. Go ahead, crank it. All right, that's not enough fuel pressure. This is not enough. I don't like how much fuel is coming out of these lines. Crank it one more time. Look, guys, this is not enough fuel pressure. All right. We don't have enough fuel pressure. We don't have enough fuel going to the injectors. I'm gonna remove this cover. I wanna remove the filter. I'm gonna get this cover off. Let's get to the top of the injector. We're gonna crank it one more time. I wanna see, because if this is the amount of fuel that we see coming out of this rail, that pressure, that quantity of fuel that we saw coming out of that line is not enough. That's not gonna cause this engine to start. That's a problem. We are going to kind of change. I want to change directions here, because I don't like the amount of fuel that I saw coming out of that fuel line over there. That's not enough fuel pressure. What test can I do to test this high pressure fuel pump? Because our rail pressure didn't change. Our rail pressure didn't change much when we were cranking the engine. Carlo, you might have to cut this screen recorder because I didn't stop it. Oh, sorry. Okay, so our rail pressure didn't change. So let's back out. Let's go to data again. I don't think this pump is putting out enough pressure. So right now our rail pressure is 200 psi because the key is off. Let me turn the key on. So when we turn the key on, we go to, so key on, engine off, rail pressure, fuel rail pressure is 236. So let me close this. I'm gonna tighten this line here. Okay, so I'm gonna crank the engine. Cameraman Kyler is gonna keep scan data on the screen so you guys can see what I'm seeing here. Let's crank this one more time and see. So when you crank the engine, our rail pressure goes up to 5,364. It runs for a while, just for a few minutes, and then it dies. This is very odd. We got some smoke here. Okay, well, this is just the charger cooler tube that's disconnected. That's fine. We can just put this right there for now. Okay. Now we need to pick a direction and go. What direction are we gonna go? Is it the high pressure pump that's not supplying enough fuel to the injectors, or do we have a clogged exhaust system? So here's what I'm gonna do. We can't move this car right now. I don't want to push it in the shop. I want to do all my testing here. So I'm going to raise up the vehicle. I would like to get to the DPF and see if there's a sensor before the DPF that I can disconnect or I can remove from the exhaust system to create a leak or a hole in the exhaust stream to see if the engine is going to run better after that. I'm a little bit reluctant to remove the O2 sensor that we have up here, because if I remove the O2 sensor up here when we start the engine, that can cause, those exhaust gases can burn this plastic up here. Or maybe we can do it just for a few minutes. I mean, for a minute or so. Okay. Here's what I'm gonna do. Actually, that's easier. That's the easiest thing we can do than trying to raise up the vehicle and going under the vehicle. So I'm gonna get the O2 sensor socket. We're gonna remove this O2 sensor over here that's located on the exhaust downpipe that's behind the turbo. We're gonna remove this sensor, and then we're gonna start the engine. If the issue is the clogged exhaust system, once we remove that sensor, we're gonna create a leak or an opening in the exhaust stream. All the exhaust gases will leak out of the O2 sensor hole, and if that's the issue, this engine should run. So let me go grab my O2 sensor socket and then I'll be back. So we're gonna remove this little shield that covers the turbo. So I'm gonna remove this piece here. And then let me put a light in here so you can see. Okay, so we're gonna trying to get to this sensor. I'm gonna disconnect the electrical connector, and then we're gonna get our O2 sensor socket on the sensor here. Okay, we're gonna remove the sensor. Let's see. There we go. Nice. Very good. Easy peasy. Okay. We're gonna remove the sensor. Now we're gonna have a oxygen sensor code in the engine computer. That's fine. Okay. So as you can see, we have a hole over here. Look at the sensor. The sensor is a little wet. I don't even know what that is. Is it fuel? Interesting. Okay, so the hole is open there. So now I'm gonna go in the vehicle and start the engine. Let's put our sensor here. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see what happens. What do you think? Actually, the car is running longer now. Look, we have the exhaust leak over there. Oh, check this out. Now, what do you think, cameraman Kyler? It's running longer, so that's a problem. Maybe not the problem, but it's a problem. We can get the engine to run longer now. So it's a clogged exhaust. The exhaust system is clogged. Now, I don't want to run it too long because we might burn the this plastic cover here. Let me plug this back in. It's fixed! It's fixed, guys! Okay, let me turn it off and start it back up. Wait, now let's do a quick experiment. All right, so guys, let us know in the comment section, what do you guys think? Are we in the right direction? Did we fix it? So we removed the O2 sensor, now the engine is running. Remember before, as soon as we started it, it died right away. So let me start it one more time. I'm gonna reinstall the O2 sensor just so we can duplicate the issue. So that's one problem. Okay, let me start it one more time. Wait. So as you can hear, the car is running for a lot longer than it was before. So that's good. Let me turn off the engine. I'm gonna reinstall the O2 sensor. I'm not gonna tighten it. I'm gonna reinstall it. So we got the O2 sensor here. Okay, I'm gonna reconnect the sensor. Okay, so let's see. What do you think, cameraman Kyler? You think it's gonna do the same thing again? Yeah? Okay. All right, here we go. Now it doesn't run anymore. Let's try it one more time. All right, so as you guys can see, now it's a crank no start. Okay, now it doesn't start, so I have the magic solution. Let's remove the O2 sensor. Let's remove the O2 sensor and see if it's gonna run. So, as you can see with the O2 sensor on, the car doesn't run. I'm gonna remove the O2 sensor now. Ooh, I don't know if you heard that. There was like a lot of pressure. So yeah, this exhaust is clogged. So there was a lot of pressure built up. I don't know where the restriction is. It could be between the turbo and the DPF, or somewhere in the exhaust system. There's a huge restriction because I felt a lot of air coming out when I removed this O2 sensor. Okay, the O2 sensor is out. Now let's see. It's running. Okay. It's fixed. All right, guys. So although there is a little bit of a knocking noise going on, right now we have to focus on the exhaust system. Let's figure out where the restriction is. If it's the DPF that's clogged, we're gonna have to replace that, and then we'll go from there. So we're gonna stop here, okay? It's getting late. Now we know where the problem is. We can now run the engine for longer than 5 minutes. So we know we have a problem in the exhaust system. So what I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna have to drive the vehicle in the shop so we can put it on the lift. We're gonna drive it with the O2 sensor off. We're gonna drive it in the shop and lift it, and then we're gonna inspect the exhaust system to figure out where the restriction is. We have to fix that first. So if it's the DPF, chances are it's the DPF because they replaced the catalytic converters. So the DPF, I don't know where the DPF is. I don't know how this exhaust system is set up. If the DPF is after the cats, which I believe it is, if it's clogged, even if you change the cats, the restriction will still be there. So maybe the DPF is clogged, maybe the resonator is clogged, maybe, I don't know. We need to figure that out. So we're gonna stop here, be on the lookout for part 2. We're gonna bring the vehicle in the shop and figure out where the restriction is. After we fix the restriction, we're gonna take the vehicle for a test drive, and then we're gonna check everything else to figure out what else is wrong on this engine. So cameraman Kyler, thanks for being here. I am going to call Mr. Chandler from the other shop. I'm gonna let him know that we got the engine to run. I'm gonna tell him that the exhaust system is restricted, just kind of like we found. I'm sure they're gonna watch this video. So I'm gonna tell him what we found. At this point, I'm gonna recommend that we continue with our diagnosis because, guys, here's how we do the diagnosis here. We have a diagnosis fee that we initially charge. Right now, we pretty much have used all the diagnosis time that they paid for, so I'm gonna need more diagnosis time. So we're done with the initial diagnosis fee that we charge. I'm gonna ask them to give us more diagnosis time so we can test the exhaust system and everything else that need to be tested. So I'm gonna stop here. We need to get more diagnosis time to continue so we can really fix this vehicle properly. So enough talking. Cameraman Kyler, thanks for being here. Thank you for everything you're doing. Everybody, let us know what you thought about this. If you have a comments, questions, if you were fixing this, how you would have gone about doing this. Now, the telltale sign, I mean, when you guys watch this, when I would watch this, the telltale sign about this issue was the pressure differential sensor data PID. Remember when we cranked the engine, the pressure differential sensor data PID went up to about 16 psi, which told me that there was a restriction in the exhaust system because 16 psi on the pressure differential sensor data while you're cranking the engine is way higher than normal. Because the rule of thumb on the exhaust system, I mean the back pressure on the, what am I trying to say? I mean the rule of thumb, the number that's acceptable on the exhaust system is about 1 psi, okay? If you go over 1 psi in the exhaust system in terms of back pressure, or restriction in the exhaust system. If you go over 1 psi, that's a problem. So as you guys saw on the data, we had way more than 15 psi on the pressure differential data. So that is what kind of directed me towards checking the exhaust system. So we're done. Once again, cameraman Kyler, thanks for being here. We're gonna do part 2 hopefully tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We'll film the whole process anyways. You guys will see how we're gonna go about fixing this and taking care of this car. So thanks for being here. See you guys next time.